Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying the sessions as much as we are. Let us know more about your experience in the social wall of the conference platform and on LinkedIn, Twitter, or on Instagram using the hashtag TechHRIN and become the LinkedIn blogger or a Twitterati or Insta artist of the day and win exciting prizes. Now we have a case study on HR as change leaders tackling economic downturn, where our speakers will talk about how HR teams can align their people and organizational priorities by strategizing their short term and long term roadmaps to respond to macro business threats. Please help me in welcoming our speakers Saurabh Kale, Senior Director, People and Culture at Talent 500, Rizwan Khan, VP HR at Porter, and this session will be facilitated by Abhinav, who is the CEO and co founder of PeopleBox. Over to you, Abhinav.
Welcome, everyone. I'm super excited to welcome two great friends and amazing HR leaders, Saurabh and Rizwan, to speak about today's topic, HR as change leaders tackling economic downturn. So I know Saurabh from my Practo days when we used to work together, and he has led people development in amazing ways. I've known Rizwan recently, but I've been super impressed with his insights on aligning people and business strategy. So, common yet key things about both of them is that they have been instrumental in driving strategies for the companies they have worked with. So, Saurabh and Rizwan, welcome to the panel. When I started my career back in 2003, which has been almost 20 years, you would barely see HR sitting on the strategy table. And now we hear it very often that business strategy is people's strategy, and the role of HR has become an integral part of the business strategy. What has really changed? Saurabh, starting with you.
Lots have changed. I think the recent trigger, I would definitely say, would be pandemic. But I think earning a seat at the table was the early conversations that when I started my career, it existed. To the fact that how can HR be a driver or a contributor to the business strategy as well. Now, what changed are different events. Startups have come and disrupted the marketplace. We have pandemics, which have come and changed the way. Attraction and retention today seems to be a major challenge, not just for HR, but also for the businesses. These are a few things that I can think about, what earned HR its seat on the strategy table.
Rizwan, your take.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Abhinav, for having me for this session. As Saurabh mentioned, right, a lot of things change post the pandemic. Now, when you look at this, now we can't really call it post the pandemic because it's still on. But look at what's happening around in the world, right? There's war in Ukraine. There are other economic factors that are leading to a lot of strain on the availability of money in the market, right? Now, what that does is it puts it forces us to put on a thinking cap and relook or revision the way we want to look at HR, people, and business as one unit, right? Gone are the days where you would do growth at any cost, where you would just make sure that you will throw money or people at the problem. Now, if you cannot do that, then you need to bring in the people who bring in the people for you, right? And that's where we come into the mix, and we discuss this with the business and tell them, is this really the right way to go about things? There's going to be a sharp focus on profitability, sharp focus on efficiency, and that will only augur well for the entire ecosystem. So in my view, HR has always been on the table, but it's become much more stronger now with the uncertainty and ambiguity that is certainly around us right now.
Awesome. I really like what you said, that HR has always been on the table, but it's becoming more and more stronger. And I think you also talk about pandemic, and just coming on to that, this is basically the second big change that we are witnessing in the past couple of years. One was, of course, the COVID, when the entire world went remote, but thankfully it didn't impact the economies that bad. So every time I talk to the HR, they say our number one problem is hiring. But now that the downturn has started, and like you said, that we can't throw money to every problem, what is the number one challenge for HR today? Rizwan, starting from you.
Right. Because your focus is on profitability, your focus is on efficiency. The biggest challenge or biggest goal that HR as a function, at least here in Porter, is to bring in alignment. And I'm pretty sure that it will be the same all across the organization, across the world, if not in just India. Now, why is alignment important? You're not focusing on the width now, you're focusing on the depth. Now, to focus on the depth, you need to have a common goal that drives everybody. Now, HR can play a very crucial role in becoming that mediator or connector of some sort, which brings in engineering together, which brings in product together, which brings in business together, and gives them a platform to showcase and move forward. So for me, biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity is both alignment. And the better we are able to bring in for the organization, the faster and higher will we grow. So that's my view on that.
Absolutely. I just couldn't agree more on the whole alignment piece. And Saurabh, as somebody who has actually helped CXOs align teams, and I see you're also a certified OKR coach. How do you go and see the problem of misalignment on the challenge for that for the companies, and how well do you think HR can play the role in fixing that?
Very well said, and I'm going to actually double down on what Rizwan said. Alignment and having a common purpose or a one purpose is extremely important, and that's where OKR plays a very important role. OKRs provide a North Star, or a direction for the entire organization. Having said that, the most common problem that I've also seen with the OKRs coming from a coaching angle of it is how does it translate to an individual goal? And I definitely want to kind of say at this point in time, there are very few players in the market who are able to connect these two together, because they either seem far too distant or not. People are unable to associate with it. But I definitely want to say at this point in time, PeopleBox seems to be one of our choices when it comes to deploying OKRs within the organization. Because what helped us at Talent 500 was also the fact that one is crafting great OKRs and having a North Star, but to be able to cascade it down to the nth individual to make sure that they understand how do they contribute, which is where, to Rizwan's point, the alignment and the purpose kind of gets it fits in absolutely well. So yes, absolutely, I would say that OKRs are a great tool. There are pros and cons. Your organization needs to be pretty agile, flexible, and resilient to change, and that's where OKRs works the best at this point in time.
Thank you so much for the kind words, Saurabh, and of course for your thoughts, Rizwan, as well. Moving on, again, talking about the thing that we are staring at, which is what everybody's calling an economic downturn. The word seems to be moving from, Rizwan, like you also said, that growth at any cost to sustainable growth, and it's probably may last for the next couple of years as well. And for our audience who's mainly going to be HR, what advice would you have for them to ensure that they can play a very critical role in ensuring that sustainable development of the company?
Right. So, we've spoken about alignment, so I'm not going to touch that point again. Now, you rightly mentioned whether the economic downturn, how long will it last? It's anybody's guess at the current moment, right? But what I can only say is that this comes in phases. We've seen this happening in the past. It's not the first time that we're seeing this. Maybe this time it's slightly bigger, but it is there. It will move away and what will happen is the organizations that will focus on profitability, focus on efficiency, focus on consolidation, will be the one that will sail through this. And it will just mean that our way of doing business will change, and that is what will be the best outcome of this entire downturn. Now, with regards to what HR can do, there are a few things, right? There are certain operational and strategic things both that we need to focus on. Talking about operational things, think about basic things like how do you plan your manpower? Now, earlier it was, when we spoke about growth at all costs, you just add 100 more people, and you will be able to solve that problem. So here we will have to be, have that seat on the table, talk to the business leaders, tell them, do you really need that many number of people, and then align them to what the requirement is. That's the operational bit. But a more strategic aspect is, even though this is a downturn, your people are your biggest asset. Now, what are you doing for your people? right? So identify your high potentials, make sure that they get to invest in them, get them to the next level, focus on the learning and development initiatives. At Porter, we are trying to focus on the middle management and the first time managers, and making sure that they are getting trained to be able to handle the workforce that we have. Now if you do all of this right, these are very small steps apart from alignment, which is like an umbrella of everything. Operational and people development aspects will come together and help you go move to the next level. And downturn, no downturn, I think these are fundamentals. They need to be followed, and if they are followed, there's no reason why you won't succeed.
Rizwan, I just couldn't agree more on some of the things you said. And just to paraphrase, one thing you talk about, just the fundamentals, I think in our startup words, we keep hearing is that downturn is pretty much one thing that it causes it, that it separates big good businesses to bad businesses, businesses who focus on fundamental. And the second thing I absolutely agree you said is that people are your biggest assets. Gone are the days when your raw material or your land or your intellectual property used to be your competitive advantage. And I think companies who sort of, and probably manage would be a wrong word, but companies who sort of utilize the power of their people would ultimately be the winner when we come out of this economic downturn. Sort of, again, you spoke about OKRs as a tool, and again I keep coming to you about OKRs because you are a certified OKR coach as well. You talk about that there are pros, there are cons, and also the OKR fails. For companies who are really looking at this misalignment problems or thinking about using OKRs, what advice you will have for them that how to get that right, and make sure that it's not a long and expensive failure. They get OKRs and they get it right and have to align the teams.
So I have a slightly different take, on how possibly this deployment of OKRs, alignment within the organization plays out. I completely agree with Rizwan at this point in time that in the downturn, we definitely need to optimize on operational efficiencies. Now, there are three parameters, and in fourth parameter is primarily for a human resources team as such, which is cost, quality, time, and NPS. Now, if we are to look at these four metrics as such, OKRs will help you to achieve that. And the best way of driving OKRs in the organization would be to keep it iterative. You start, you launch it, you kind of work on it. And with every check-in, you have an opportunity to course correct, in case you are either too ambitious or possibly you have taken too lowly of a goal. Now, that's how, the operational efficiencies can also kind of be optimized through the whole process. So in the downturn, the best way to kind of, I would say, surpass this period of tough times would be to put your head down and focus on operational efficiencies.
Absolutely. And Saurabh and Rizwan, both, you use OKRs both at Talent 500 and Porter. And I think you have seen it closely. And from our perspective as well, we have seen OKRs, companies adopting OKRs. And sometimes there is no HR involvement. And sometimes OKR is the only party involved in OKR implementation. What are some of the lessons that you have seen that have, of course, made OKR successful to your companies in aligning the teams, which, as we discussed, is very important in today's, times when we are looking at some uncertainties going ahead. Rizwan, starting from you.
So we are, to be honest, we are on a journey right now to make OKR as an internal fabric to us. But one thing is fairly certain, and unless and until this becomes like a central theme to you, which comes from the business heads, comes from the founders, and then people believe in it and see it as a common thing to take you forward, only then it will succeed. If it is a HR initiative that you will bring in and say that HR will be driving in, hence you need to look at it, then it will not. Because where most people struggle is they look at HR, they look at OKR rather as a performance review mechanism, which it is. Yes, it could be, but it is not the primary objective of OKR. So you need to bring in OKR to be able to drive the objectives and the important key results for the organization, and it needs to be endorsed by the entire senior leadership and backed by them to be able to make it a success. And HR can be a catalyst to take it to everyone. So in my view, that's what I think about OKR and its journey and how it should be implemented.
Thank you. Thanks, Susan. Saurabh, would love to hear your thoughts. You have seen this in multiple companies. I remember, we were together when OKRs were implemented in Practo as well.
So the way I look at it is you need to create enough push for the pull to get activated. So I think the initial push that is required in the organization to accept and drive the OKRs is where any HR team plays a very important role. And if I could share, I have few suggestions for all the HR professionals out there who are trying to drive OKRs in the organization. The first thing is, if you're a tech organization, think like a product manager. For every feature, everything that you have, you basically change as per the marketplace as such. So think like a product manager. The second would be to ask the right set of questions to the business leaders. OKRs are most successful, I've seen in my experience, when right questions are asked and they are addressed in the forums as such. So do ask the right questions. The third is less is more. I think a lot of organizations try to punch in a lot in a quarter, and my personal observation is that's where it fails as an organization as well. So less is more. Focus on creating lesser or more impact through doing little things or small things, but focus on the impact. And most important of all, try and provide the value as an HR team by contributing, getting the numbers, working across, increasing the collaboration, and use that as an opportunity to work across the board. So personally, OKRs is a great tool. And I would definitely say, what Rizwan mentioned is about, having the alignment within the leadership team, but create enough push. That's where human resources team can add the most value.
Talking about the whole buy-in piece, when I speak with some of the progressive HR leaders, they often tell me that the whole misalignment problem, especially in this uncertain times, is hurting me personally. They say it's creating bad cultures because sometimes even founders are not aligned, and it's causing lack of productivity and ultimately causing attrition. What advice, Saurabh, would you have for HR who wants to bring HR in their respective companies, but they are not able to get the business buy-in, and they want to business and the leadership onto the same page, that the best way to tackle misalignment are OKRs?
If you were to ask me this question time and again, and while I was with different startups, I think I would say 60 to 80% of my time would go in alignment, aligning different leaders and getting their buy-in and so on and so forth. And HR as change leaders, I would feel that plays a very important role in getting the buy-in, not just from top down, but also bottom up. And that's where most of the energies are being spent as such. And I think it's a crucial element for success of any people initiatives as such, OKRs being one. But my recommendation to all the HRs out there is be a problem solver and not be, or rather be an HR professional second. Right. So when you focus on the problem statement and you kind of, try and get to the root of the problem, you're more likely to succeed. But don't lose your focus on getting the alignment from the people. It's the biggest ingredient of success in all the people initiatives.
So let me put this question in some another way for you, Rizwan. You have been one of the most passionate advocate of OKRs that I come across, and you are leading the whole OKR initiative at Porter at the front. I'm sure when you go and speak about the benefits of it to different leaders, you must have come across some resistance. What do you go and tell the business leaders who are skeptical about it, that why is it important and why is it important today?
You get your ears to the ground is what I would say to everybody, right? The biggest indicators will come from the people that are working with you in your organization. Saurabh earlier mentioned about NPS. That's a very powerful tool that will give you a lot of information. So, what we do is we run a lot of surveys once every 6 months on an organization scale, and we collect information about what is it that they like and what are the things that they would want to know and what are the things that are stopping them. So the kind of insights that we got from there was a lot of people were saying that they don't know how their work impacts the organization, or they don't know what is it that I'm doing is driving for the organization. Now, this is a very important thing, because if you're not aligned to the motivations of the organization, or if you don't know how your work is impacting the organization, then you will slowly get disassociated with the whole process, right? And this one bit is enough for you to take it to your management and say that, you know what, this is a very scary situation to be in, let's get the alignment in. And once you're able to showcase that bit, it really sets the stone for you. And then it's all about how do you bring things together. And as Saurabh mentioned, you need to be able to push to create that pull. Fortunately for us, we've not needed to do so much of push here at Porter, but I can imagine that it might be the case in a lot of organizations. So ears to the ground, get information from the people who are working with you, show if there is any misalignment, and then build on that is something that we can go with.
Awesome. Ears to the ground and show if there is any misalignment. And I'm sure as companies are scaling, it's not very difficult to find misalignment. Probably my last question, since both of you talk about efficiency, that efficiency is probably one of the big challenge or the thing to do in this economic downturn or, uncertain time. One thing that I've been keep hearing from founders and HR leaders that they want to create this culture of outcomes. When people are not just talking about the projects and initiative, they're actually talking about things that that moves the needle. That this whole outcome-driven culture. Would love to hear your thoughts, Rizwan, first. That how you have been able to create a more outcome-driven culture and how that helped you, tackle this uncertain times.
Right. So we are on a journey, Abhinav, the current moment to get to that outcome focused, process. Why is that important? Is if you're not able to identify a specific outcome that you're chasing, you will not be able to reach the end goal. Right. So, in order for us to be able to create that visibility and create that, common understanding amongst everybody, it's important to move towards an outcome focused journey, because your input versus my input might be very different, but both of us combined is leading to a specific outcome, and that drives better collaboration and better results. So if you're as a growing organization, if you want to focus on collaboration, if you want to focus on working together as teams, outcome focus is the way to go, but not forgetting the inputs that each individual are putting in, because that's an equally important aspect of the work, which most companies tend to do either or of it. And we are very conscious of the fact that while we want to move to an outcome focused journey, which is extremely important in today's uncertain times and for the growth, but we should not forget the inputs which are required to achieve those outcomes. So that's my view on that.
It's not a binary. While you of course focus on outcome, don't forget about the efforts that individuals have put, and
Yes.
it should of course be taken account of. Sarah, would love to hear your thoughts about building a great outcome focused culture.
On the contrary to what I just heard from both of you, I heard many years ago something which I'm going to kind of try and bounce it off to you. Inputs leads to outcomes. Sorry, input leads to output, and performance leads to outcomes. All right, and somehow I vaguely remember wherever I heard it, it kind of stuck a chord with me. For the matter that yes, it's not just the efforts. But on the contrary, it's the performance which results into the outcomes. Now, one of the ways that I have seen it being successful in an organization is maybe it's very difficult in today's virtual, hybrid, remote environment where you would know somebody's tasks or for that matter, things to do kind of approach. But what you can definitely appreciate through your one-on-ones and so on and so forth are the efforts that go in that direction, and maybe that is something that can be measured. Once again, I think a lot of us possibly know this term: what gets measured gets kind of done. I'll repeat myself: what gets measured gets done, right? So primarily, just kind of circling back to what I started out with, maybe performance is something that can be measured, and hence maybe that's how it can be. We can focus on the outcomes as well. But that's just another point of view. I believe in today's world, when everyone is stretching, trying to achieve a lot more, be more, and so on and so forth, I think ultimate focus needs to be on driving the outcomes. And it really doesn't matter whether it's input or performance, but results truly matter.
I think that's a great quote by Peter Drucker. What gets matter gets managed. To wrap up this session, Saurabh, Rizwan, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, and especially on a very, very important topic of the role that HR can play in these times. Thanks again, and have a great
It was a
day.
pleasure.
Thank you so much, Saurabh, Rizwan, and Abhinav, for this amazing session. Up next, we have a case study: The Digital Workforce: Empower People with Tech. See you there.